Yeah, and we didn't get to stay for any of Disturbed's stuff. I think I heard 1,000 hands or 1,000 fists, and then I wanted to stick around for Stricken, and we didn't get to hear Down with the Sickness either. But that was because my mom wanted to leave early, given that parking lots after concerts get really nuts, and she was not. That was the first moment in my life where I was like, "Is music not as important to my mom as it is?" It wasn't even that important to me when I was that age, but I really liked that concert. I really liked hearing Megadeth sing Countdown or Symphony of Destruction, and they did Tornado of Souls that night, I think. They definitely did Holy Wars. Yeah, it was so cool. I haven't seen them since, but I would. Honestly, I'd go see Megadeth.
I've never seen them, but I'd only see them if they were touring with someone else I wanted to see, like really wanted to see.
Yeah, because I don't think they're ever going to headline their own tour anymore. I don't know. I don't even think Dave cares about that anymore. I think they're doing fine. And like this album is emblematic of that. I know I used the word emblematic earlier, but I just like it and I think it makes me sound smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, fucking be sure to check out my ranking of Megadeth, which is definitely going to be out before you see this.
Honestly, yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, he's going to rank all 16 albums.
I think it's 16. Goodness gracious.
Yeah. But yeah, be on the lookout for that, and be on the lookout for more content from both of us, because we both do stuff on our channels. Him more so than I, but I'm getting back on that train. I promise. But before we end, I don't want to speed run through Pokemon, but I think at this point we probably have like 7 or 8 minutes. Not that there's much to talk about with Gen 2 anyway, because we found out before filming that it was really just the core games and then Pokemon Stadium 2, which neither of us played.
Nope.
But we could at least talk about Gen 2, because Gen 2 is one of, if not my favorite region. Not even, I guess the Johto region is my favorite, but like the Gen 2 games and the remakes, and anytime like Johto is mentioned, like in our mobile games, they just put out like a Johto expansion, and they released, Lugia as a Pokemon, which is my favorite legendary, and blah, blah, blah. But Pokemon Gold and Silver are as genuine sequels as I think any Pokemon game is going to get, other than, I guess, Black 2 and White 2. But, like, Gold and Silver just felt so much more special because it wasn't the same region. Like, you got to explore Kanto at the end of the game, so you got to collect 16 gym badges. You got to fight the Elite Four twice, the second time they had, like, Pokemon from Johto and, or from Kanto. And you get to fight the player character that you played as in the last game at the end as, like, a secret boss. It's fucking sick. And, like, the Pokédex for Gold and Silver, I think, to this day, has some of the best designed like, Scizor, one of the coolest looking Pokemon I've ever seen. Like, I love Scizor so much. He's on my dream team. They're like Sudowoodo started the trend of Pokemon getting typings that don't make sense, even though, like, because you look at Sudowoodo and you're like, that's a grass type. Yeah. And you try to hit it with a fire move, and then it's like, not very effective. And you're like, what the fuck? And then it uses Rock Throw, and you're like, what the? Excuse me? Yeah, and then the most recent, I think, example of that is Grapploct, who you look at and you're like, oh, it's a blue octopus. I found it swimming in the water. It's a water type. No, just pure fighting.
Yeah.
Stupidest. Oh, God, I was so pissed because I did not want to use Barraskewda in Sword and Shield. I so badly wanted to use Grapploct as a water type. But I digress. So, Gen 2 had some really underrated character or Pokemon designs. It had one of the most fun regions to explore, honestly. We still had HMs, which were a pain in the ass. But it's got the best boss fight going up to Mountain Silver, and there's no music, and then you talk to Red and you see ... because, like, of course he doesn't say anything. And then you hear, like, the champion music start to play, like the ba 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 ba, and it just gets you so hype, and you're like, oh shit. And then at this point you've only beat the Elite Four once, so your Pokemon are in the 50s, and then you go up to Mount Silver, and the first Pokemon he sends out is I think it's Venusaur or Blastoise, and they're like in the 70s. It's like 76. And you're like, holy shit. And his Pikachu is level 81. It's like At least I'm pretty sure it's 81. His Pokemon are some of the highest leveled in any game, like, period. And so it really is like final boss, like Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts 2 level. Like, you gotta grind. Like, you cannot just jump back. You cannot just fight Red as soon as you finish beating the Elite Four once. Like, this guy's gonna run laps around you. Because it's your player character from the last game. And it's like, well, now I have to beat myself. It's so... I will never get over how cool that concept is. Never, ever. But yeah, Gold and Silver. What are your favorite Gen 2 Pokemon? Do you have any?
Well, I always went with Totodile.
Yeah.
Never once used Chikorita.
I've used Chikorita more times to make up for
Actually,
that.
maybe I did once. Like when I went through Gold or Silver on my like 3DS.
Oh,
just because
yeah.
I've never used it.
Mm-hmm.
Johto is a region where it's tough because it was like Gen 2 and 1.
Mm-hmm.
I get them confused a bunch. It's like, who was actually like part of the new group in Gen 2?
Yeah.
Because I, played Fire Red a bunch, and a lot of Johto Pokemon were in Fire Red.
Yeah.
And I'm just, I can barely tell the two regions apart, honestly.
I think
like Pokédex wise.
Right. I think Ampharos is a standout Pokemon from Gen 2 because it was, I think, the first like 3-stage electric type. So it almost felt like Mareep was like a starter Pokemon, because you got Mareep and then Flaffy and then you had Ampharos at the end.
The unknowns are my favorite of Gen 2.
The unknowns.
Fucking love the unknowns.
Yeah, there's the completionists out there are going to appreciate unknown because they all do the exact same thing, but they just look different because they're different letters of the Roman alphabet. I think Roman alphabet, Latin alphabet, whatever. The American one, ABC. Yeah, you also had Jumpluff, who I think is very underrated. It's a grass flying type, and it starts out as a Hoppip, which I think is one of the best designed Pokemons ever. It's got the spiky leaves, and it spins like a helicopter. Yeah. And then Jumpluff is just like fluffy. I just wish its stats were a little better. Ledian is to this day my favorite like Route 1 bug type, but its stats are garbage. Oh God. Ledian's such a bad Pokemon, but I love its design so fucking much. God, why are you gonna give it the Iron Fist ability where it increases the power of punching type moves and make its attack stat like 15? Why are you gonna do that? You don't give it any opportunity to increase its attack stat other than using Silverwind and praying that it increases your stats by 1 level when you use it. That's if you don't use all 5 PP of Silverwind because Silverwind only has 5 fucking PP. Jesus, man. Crobat got introduced in Gen 2. Legitimized the Zubat family. And then, every villain team, like, from those games onward used a fucking Crobat.
Yeah.
Steelix, like, it had a lot of generational evolutions that were, like, I cannot think of Onix never having an evolution, But even, like, the first gym leader, Faulkner, his signature Pokemon is Pidgeotto. Like, it's not a Johto Pokemon. But I think in the anime he has a Noctowl. Noctowl's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The less cool owl.
Cool owl, yeah. The less cool owl. And then, of course, you have the legendary... I'm learning they're they're cats. They're not dogs.
They're cats.
Yeah.
They're like tiger-ish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're
everyone called them the dogs.
Yeah, the legendary dogs. Yeah, right. That combined with the fact that it's pronounced Raikou and not Raikou it's so heartbreaking to me. They're not dogs, and I have to call it Raikou.
Absolutely not.
But yeah, Lugia. They were the first games to introduce the dual box art legendaries because we only had the 3 birds and then Mewtwo and Mew in Gen 1 as like rare Pokemon. And then in Crystal, which came out after that, introduced, or I guess Yellow introduced like the 3rd game of the region. But Crystal introduced animations, like sprite animations.
Yeah, and then the drop downs of the towns you walk into.
Yep.
Chris.
Yeah, Chris, the first female protagonist of the games, and then we got to play as May and Brendan in the next games. And it was just like the steps that Gold and Silver took from Red and Blue, and like, you know, after that, like the steps that Crystal took from Yellow. I don't know. It's just impressive to think about. Like, even though like the games as a franchise have their quality of life have been improved so much more beyond that, but that was like, you know, an important first step for the franchise was like acknowledging, okay, this franchise is really popular, we got to make a sequel. And then they treated it like a sequel where they just improved a bunch of shit, and they added a new region, and they added like 100 something new Pokemon. They were also my first Pokemon games ever. I like the ones that I owned. The first Pokemon game I ever owned was Pokemon Silver, and I remember very vividly. I talk about this in the Pokemon retrospective that we made, what, like a year ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah, that no one saw, but
that no one saw. That we were gonna make a part 3 too, but you know, part 1 took so much work and no one watched it, and then we put up part 2, or you put up part 2.
Even less people watched it.
And even less people
I
watched it.
put it up on my fucking birthday.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, I'm not going to ask for you to donate to any shit for my birthday. Can you just watch this video? Right. No one fucking watched it.
Right.
All you fucking fake ass friends.
Hey, all right.
I'm still fucking pissed about that.
Yeah.
Everyone, all you, shame on you.
I will speak for both of us when I say that we both love Pokemon so much, and
you know how long that shit took.
Yeah, it took a long time to edit that one for him, and the only editing that I did was for my own segment in the first video where I talked about my first experiences with Pokemon ever.
You could tell I saved the timeline screenshots of 1 and 2, and I tried so like much less than 2 because it was just man, I don't know how people do that. Like scroll through footage, endless amounts of other people's footage, to find the specific thing you're looking for. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, like when you're doing commentary videos and you're using footage from other things. I don't know. It's nuts, y'all. It's fucking nuts, y'all. But yeah. Anyway, I think Gen 2 is because Silver was my first game. Chikorita was technically my first starter ever because my mom started the game with me. It was the morning too.
Chicky.
Yeah, and she was like, "Oh, you get to pick a starter Pokemon. That's cool. Go with Chikorita because it's cute, the cutest out of the 3." She did not like Totodile, and Cyndaquil freaked her out, I guess, because his eyes were always closed. So she was like, "Pick Chikorita. That one's cute." And then it gives you the option to give it a nickname, which I didn't know was a thing in Pokemon. And then she was like, "Name it Chicky," because she is terrible with nicknames. She named both her 2004 and 2013 Toyota Camrys Cammy. Changed one letter. And, you know, I don't know. In her head, it makes sense. In my head, I'm like, that's a little contrived. But as soon as she left the room, I restarted the game and I picked Cyndaquil because I was like, that's the Pokemon I want. Typhlosion became my first level 100 Pokemon ever. Lugia was a close second. And then my sister restarted the game and saved it.
You know how much I sacrificed?
It was heartbreaking for sure, but you know, because now I can never go back to that original cartridge and you know look back. Not that it would even work, you know, because like the batteries they get old and they dry out and stuff like that. But
yeah, bro, Crystal was my second Pokemon game.
Yeah, well, and we'll get to your first Pokemon games, you know, next episode.
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
think
Crystal was good. Like these early generations with the third game, they make the other two obsolete.
Honestly,
like there's no reason to ever actually play Gold and Silver.
Yeah,
when Crystal's there.
You got Yellow, Crystal, Emerald, Platinum.
Yeah.
And then Black and White were the first ones where like
that's when it stopped.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
you fucking game freak. Where's Gray?
You should have made Pokemon Z.
Where's Pokemon Earth? Z? Gun? And now it's gonna be like
Scarlet, Violet, and you have like some sort of green. I don't know.
but Verde.
Verde, Pokemon Verde. Yeah, they're like different salsas now. Yeah, have you ever tried Violet sauce? So anyway,
Pokemon Indigo.
Pokemon Indigo. Yeah, people have been like making fan games for years, and
I think there's actually a Pokemon Indigo out there.
I think so too. Yeah, and then Pokemon Stadium 2, we never played. I never had an N64. I didn't even have a GameCube. So a lot of these games I'm only going to have short experiences with.